Master Shen-Kai tells Buddhist stories.
The Deer King sacrificed his own life, which touched the king. Long kalpas ago, there lived in the woods 500 deer, among which were 2 deer kings, taller and stronger than the rest of the deer herd and adored and honored by the deer. One of the deer kings had snow-white horns and a colorful skin, could talk like a human, and was deeply endowed with wisdom. He was actually a Mahasattva, reborn as a deer to ferry sentient beings in animal path across to the other shore. Together with the deer king that had been born because of the power of karma, the Bodhisattva deer king often led the herd of deer to look for brook water to drink and green grass to graze among mountain ponds and fields. Sometimes he also spoke the cause and effect of good and evil for them. Although these deer were animals, they were also endowed with virtuous roots and could accept his instruction. Every day, except for drinking water and grazing, the deer would go back to the woods to listen to the Bodhisattva deer king speaking Dharma in the deer language. One day, the 2 deer kings led the herd of deer to play with water in a mountain stream nearby. It happened that the king of the country went out of town to hunt. The king was ferocious and barbaric and particularly loved hunting wild animals for food. On that day, he brought dozens of hunters and attendants with him and rushed toward the field where the deer herd lived, ready to start a slaughter operation. When the group was going along the stream, they suddenly found hundreds of deer moving toward the woods. This greatly excited the king. He thought that they were bound to return fully loaded. So he ordered the hunters and attendants to go in different directions to stalk the woods, surround the deer herd, and set up traps around the woods. And the king also had the people that besieged the eastern and southern part of the woods set fire to the woods to force the herd of deer out so that they would fall into the traps and be caught. At this time, the herd of deer discovered that they were besieged by humans and saw that the woods were on fire. They felt panicky and didn't know what to do. The 2 deer kings looked calm and commanded the deer so that they would not panic. The Bodhisattva deer king was particularly composed and fearless. He discussed with the other deer king, saying, "Now our lives are at stake. If we rush out of the woods, we must fall into traps and be caught. But if we keep staying in the woods, we will be burned to death. Now, the only way to save the deer herd is that we 2 go to the front of the woods and beg of the hunters to release us. Perhaps we can save the lives of the herd of deer for a while in this way." Seeing that the situation was so urgent that there was no time for hesitation, the deer king could only risk his life and rush out of the woods with the Bodhisattva deer king so that they could have the chance of watching for the proper moment to act. At this time, having deployed for hunting, the king was waiting in front of the woods, determined to win. When he suddenly discovered 2 big deer rushing out of the woods, the king immediately ordered the hunters to raise the bow and take aim at them, only to hear one of which, the 9-colored deer, shouting out loud, "Please don't shoot." The voice sounded powerful in the woods and the fields, and all the attendants were shocked by the deer which, out of the blue, spoke the human language and thus withdrew their drawn arrows on the bows, not daring to shoot. The king was also surprised by this, and he immediately ordered that the fire be extinguished, for he wanted to see what monster on earth the speaking deer was. The 2 deer kings walked to the king, got down on their knees, and gazed at him with tears in their eyes. The king saw this strange sight and felt it even weirder, so he asked them, "You 2 are taller and stronger than the other deer. You must be the deer kings. I am the current king, and I have never seen a talking animal since I began hunting. Whence did you come and why can you talk like a human?" The Bodhisattva deer king replied, "I am a practitioner of the Bodhisattva way. I was reborn as a deer king to ferry sentient beings falling to the evil paths across to the other shore, so that I can teach and convert them expediently. Now, we encounter the disaster of being hunted and killed by your majesty, and the lives of the deer herd are at stake. I beg of your majesty to spare the deer herd. If your majesty still doesn't want to stop it, please kill us both and take us back to the palace. Please don't put the deer herd in such a desperate situation." The king had waited long to have this good luck, so how could he easily give up? However, after listening to the deer king, he was dubious, and his wish of killing the whole deer herd became not so strong. But he still said impudently, "You 2 are deeply endowed with spirituality and are different from animals. I won't kill you 2 and can't spare the other deer either." The Bodhisattva deer king saw that it's difficult to pacify the king's mind of killing, so he begged piteously, If your majesty kills all of the 500 deer, the dead bodies will become rotten in a few days because it's very hot now and you can't eat the meat anymore. Wouldn't it be better if your majesty mercifully lets the deer herd live longer? I will send 2 deer at the foot of the mountain every day for your majesty to eat until all of the 500 deer are given away. There will be no delay. In this way, not only does your majesty have fresh deer meat to eat every day, but the deer herd will be most grateful. Having said it, the 2 deer kings shed tears like rain and prostrated on the ground to plead with the king. After listening to the deer king, the king was somewhat touched, thinking, "It is a wonder that this deer king should be able to give admonition. Maybe I can take his word and let the deer herd live for a little longer. If he doesn't keep his promise of sending 2 deer at the foot of the mountain every day, I can lead the soldiers to burn the forest then." It turned out that the deer king kept his promise of offering 2 deer at the mountain foot for the imperial bodyguards to kill, carry back to the palace, and present to the king. It was like this every day without an exception. One day, it was the turn of a pregnant doe to be sent to the mountain foot to be served as food. The doe was about to give birth and didn't want her unborn fawn to die. So she went to the other deer king and begged of him, saying, "In a few days I will give birth. I hope that I can be offered as food after my baby is born. I wonder if your majesty can grant me this wish." The deer king answered displeasedly, "Haven't we agreed on that we will take our turn in the order of age to go to the mountain foot to be served as food? Now it's your turn, and you can't put it off because you are pregnant. It's not time yet for the other deer to do it. Nobody wants to die, and who can replace you if you don't want to go? The king will be infuriated if there is one less deer going, and all deer will encounter the disaster of being burned. How can you bear to do it?" The doe heard it and wept sadly. She then went to the Bodhisattva deer king and said tearfully, "Your kindness is what makes us adore you. Now I am pregnant and about to give birth, but it's my turn to go down the mountain foot to be served as food. I just went to the deer king to beg of him to find another deer to replace me, but he refused me. The deer king is unkind and doesn't have mercy. Now I come to you and beg of you to think up a plan for me so that I can save my unborn baby." The Bodhisattva deer king knew that nobody wanted to die first, and so no deer would be willing to replace her. But he saw that the doe was about to give birth, and this was truly pathetic, so he comforted her. "Please relax and stay in the woods to get ready for labor. I will ask another deer to replace you." The doe heard it and went away joyously. The Bodhisattva deer king thought it was the best time for him to suffer in place of sentient beings, so he went down the mountain with another deer to be served as food. The imperial bodyguard saw it and felt it strange. He asked, "Why don't I see the other deer that is to be served as food?" The Bodhisattva deer king said, "The other is a doe about to give birth. She can't come today, and so I replace her to be served as food. Please kill me." As the king had ordered that the deer king would not be killed, the imperial bodyguard dared not make decisions on his own. He just killed the other deer and brought the deer king back to the palace to leave it for the king to decide. When they went to the palace, the imperial bodyguard reported to the king, "The doe which should be served as food today is going to give birth, and the talking deer king replaces her to be killed. But your majesty has ordered that you won't have the deer kings killed, so I bring him back for your majesty to make decisions." The king heard it and was greatly amazed. He ordered the imperial bodyguard to summon the deer king to the palace and interrogated him in person. "I heard that you are willing to take a doe's place to be served as food. Aren't you afraid of death?" There was an extremely surprised look showing on the king's face. The Bodhisattva king knelt on the ground and reported to the king, "Your Majesty, I can't bear to see the doe dies without giving birth first. Therefore, I come here to offer myself as food. All human minds cravenly cling to life and fear death, and the same is true with animals. Only holy beings who have gained freedom and liberation can rid themselves of the suffering of death. Now, the doe has pleaded with me, while the rest of the deer don't want to die first. To abide by my earnest wish of saving sentient beings, I am willing to sacrifice my life and die in place of the doe. Your Majesty, please grant me the wish and kill me for food." After listening to him, the king was deeply touched and exclaimed, "How amazing it is that wild animals have sympathetic minds, let alone humans, who are the most intelligent beings in the world. I have been hunting at will and hurting living creatures, without knowing the wild animal's agony when facing death. how cruel I am." So he released the Deer King and commanded that the country stop hunting from then on and let the deer forever inhabit the woods and return to their free and comfortable life in the past. Since that time, with Long Kalpa's passing, this place has been named the Deer Woods in memorial of the great spirit of the Bodhisattva Deer King.